Hey, we're Gerald and Tabby, married over 22 years.
And still choosing each other on purpose.
We're definitely better together.
We've been through addictions, infidelity, open adoption, financial crisis, and each other.
She's the drama.
And he's the calm most of the time.
We're not experts, and we're definitely not licensed therapists. But we've learned a lot the hard way, and we're not afraid to talk about it.
For too long, we walked through our struggles alone, but that's not how God designed marriage or life.
This is where we get real about marriage, faith, and the messy stuff no one warns you about after you say, I do.
We call out the bad advice, the fake perfection, and the things that just don't work out in real life. So if you want polished, we're not it.
But if you're looking for honest, then welcome. This is I Still Do.
Disclaimer, this episode includes conversations about sensitive topics such as suicide, drugs, alcohol, and infidelity. Listener discretion is advised. These discussions may be triggering for some and may not be suitable for children. Please use care when listening, and if needed, consider stepping away or seeking support. Hi.
What's up?
Another week, another podcast.
8 podcasts, or 8 episodes.
Yeah, episode 8.
It's crazy.
It's kind of crazy that we've been doing this for 8 weeks now.
It is. It is.
I've enjoyed it.
You really appreciate the people that do it all the time, that you listen to all the time. Especially like Joe Rogan, who has like 1,000 episodes.
Yeah, and Theo Vaughn. They do it well. It's also their job, their full-time job. It's not ours, so maybe it will be one day. Let's just speak that into existence. No, but we've had a really good week. We went to Reengage, marriage training workshop that our church sent us to, and that was a phenomenal experience. And I love that it's reaching marriages of all stages, from like those that are in like deep crisis, ready to call it quits, to those that are like, you know what, our marriage is like a 7. I'd love it to be like an 8 or 9 or a 10 type thing. Like, from all over the spectrum, because I think marriage retreats and conferences, workshops, classes, all those things can kind of get a bad rap. Like, there's a stigma around it that it's only if your marriage is in crisis. And from us, at the very beginning, going to that Galatians 6:6 retreat, we've always tried to do something at least every other year, if not more. There was a time where we were going to things multiple times a year, even when we were great, just to refresh our marriage and always learn. Because it's kind of like, you know, your marriage is literally the most sacred relationship there is. It's how God created us to be. We're designed. It's when two become one.
Right.
It's the only relationship in the world that does that.
Yeah. So
it's so important. It's just like, we don't stop going to church because we've been before. You know? We don't stop our faith journey because we've been to church and we read our Bible every day. Why would we stop doing the work in our marriages?
Yeah.
Why would we stop getting different perspectives or help if we just need a simple refresh? Like, oh my gosh, we're just passing ships in the night because we're so busy. Or when you, like, there was testimonies of infidelity and severe brokenness and marriages on the verge of divorce. Like, it was such a cool program and training that we're excited to start helping facilitate, because it's for literally every single marriage.
Yeah. I'm very excited about it. It was really cool just to see how many relationships out there too have been through some really rough stuff and overcome it, but also like the relationships that were there in marriages that, like you said, maybe not been through so much of the grime of like a infidelity or drug use. It was just, hey, we hit a rough spot in our marriage with kids, or we became grandparents and some things happened. And so I'm really excited. I think Engage is going to be a really cool thing.
Yeah.
So more to come on that.
Yes,
later
for
on.
sure.
But a lot of the focus, which was cool, because one of the mornings I went to the men's Bible study they had one morning, and the focus was obviously it seemed like it was focused. It seems like every time I show up, I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about lust or pornography or something. And so I walk in, and sure enough, the title is about lust. And so it reminded me of just how much we've been through, because we actually sat through, afterwards we got invited to just do like basically a little accountability group.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool because none of us knew each other. So we went around just like we were, and it took me back to those days whenever I just joined XXX Church and their accountability groups. And I shared the joke with
the Jim
Gaffigan joke about the one where Jim Gaffigan says there's 6 billion hamburgers sold a year. There's only 300 million people in the country. I think everybody's lying about going to McDonald's. And so it's similar. We've said that, several years ago, he made that joke, but it was used for other things like internet pornography is such a big thing right now. And there's so many people saying they're not doing it, or there's so many marriages saying we don't have issues with that. But then somebody does.
Yeah.
And either we're not talking about it, or we just don't want to see or, go down that road with people.
Right. Well, the statistics show that actually the majority of marriages do struggle with it. Like, if it is something that you and your marriage struggles with, you're actually in the majority, not the minority.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's a sad statistic, it can also be comforting to know that we are not alone. We're not walking in this alone, and there is help out there, and there's also hope.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I shared during that group that this past week was the leader, the guy who was facilitating our group. He said, what was the biggest change and why did you go down that road? And there was a few of us who were a little bit more open about talking to it. And he got to me, and I just said, hey, one of the biggest things was just kind of what we talked about in the past podcast, was that whenever you make a decision or you have a realization, like this is a problem. And if you think about it just broadly, not even only pornography, when you realize something is a problem or something's not good for your life, you have to do something about it.
Right.
As soon as you have that realization. And so with pornography, whenever I had that realization and then reached out to XXX Church, sent the email, I can't tell you how much anxiety I had over just that, sending that email, because I was like, what did I just send? I just sent an email to a stranger and just told them I have an issue with pornography and I may be an addict or I may have a compulsion issue or whatever. But then one of the questions, we were talking about this at the marriage conference, was why is it so hard to find accountability? Well, if you take back, we were in a small community, small church, but also it was really hard to find men to be open with about that, because so many men just don't open up about it.
Yeah, I think there's a huge lack of transparency, not only just in men, but in relationships and in life, and especially in the church.
Yeah, and leaders too.
People respond to transparency. I think that's why testimonies are so powerful, right? Because you're being raw and vulnerable and honest and real, and people appreciate that transparency. I feel like it's super, makes people feel seen.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And everybody wants to feel seen and heard.
But it's hard.
And not alone. Yeah, it is hard.
Because it's almost like...
Yeah, you're putting yourself out there for sure.
Yeah.
To be judged.
And so let's walk through maybe how accountability started.
Yeah.
With myself, and maybe kind of revisit some of that stuff, just because, just like you've said, there's a lot of people that are being affected by this that have reached out to you. There's a lot of people I know. And some people are just missing the practical of how to walk through this. Obviously, we know there's a spiritual battle. We know that this is wrong to do. And we know those factors. But a lot of times, it's kind of like, how do you even get this started?
Right.
And the first thing, again, realizing you have a problem, reaching out to someone trusted. Yes. And in those days, I didn't have a trusted circle where I could just say, hey, I'm struggling with pornography, because to be quite honestly, some of the church leaders were making inappropriate comments about women too. So I was like, well, I can't go to the church. I think that would be weird for me to even say, I don't know if we should be talking about this, or, something like that. So when I reached out to XXX Church, got on got scheduled for the call, and I remember it cost like 30 or $50 a month, something like that. And I was sitting there like, I remember asking Carl, the guy that I talked to at Triple X Church, like, why does this charge? Seems like y'all would offer this for free.
Right.
And he's like, well, if you have something invested in us, you're more apt to stay with the program than just having something free given to you because you haven't really earned it.
Right, because you
and I was like,
skin
oh,
in the game.
That makes sense. And and in those times our funds were tight. So, $30-$50 again a month was still quite a bit of money at that time.
Of course.
So we start the groups, and the first initial group is we get some guidelines, and they go over we had a group covenant. Basically, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. This is how we're going to move forward. Obviously, there's some things in there. Hey, if you bring up something illegal or something that needs to be brought up, like obviously the leader has to take it somewhere else. But the basis of it was we're going to keep this in a close covenant group, and we're going to discuss this, and we're going to have actions, and we're going to have accountability through this group. So my group, my first initial accountability group, had 8 to 10 people in it. And one of the things Carl would say, you're only going to get what you put into it. So if you get on every call, and that's what he would say, you can get on every call and not say anything. And these were web calls, so you saw everybody. And that was the mandate. You had to have a camera so they could see your face. And so there would be guys on there that didn't say anything. And I remember my first call, they introduced me. Hey, this is Gerald. I did my whole bit. Hey, I'm Gerald. I'm struggling with pornography. And it was kind of like an AA meeting. How long you've been clean, or how many days you've been free from pornography or not viewed it, right? And I had to sit there and say like, oh, a day, or something like that. Mm-hmm. But he said, don't have to say anything your first day. And the first day, I don't think I said anything. But I sat there in awe because I'd watched one guy pop on. And this one guy popped on. He was like in his mid-50s. Hey, I'm traveling. He worked like in factories. He traveled with factories. And then one of the things he said was, I'm divorced, so therefore I'm in a hotel, and I haven't looked in porn in like 4 hours. And I was like, whoa, that takes a lot of bravery just to get on and say that, right?
Right.
And so next guy get on. He may have, 3 or 4 months, I haven't looked at pornography. Another guy gets on. Hey, I had a fight with my wife. This happened, looked at porn 2 days ago. So all these little factors are coming into place as we're talking through this. And I'm starting to realize that it's just a group of men trying to be transparent and find some sort of community. So therefore, what Carl will do to lead a lot of times is say, okay, you failed. What are you going to do now? What is one step we're going to take forward? And so every time, and that's I've adopted that too, and it's really biblical too, to think about when you fall or when you are struggling with something, it's like, well, I failed right now, but what can I do to get back? Or I have this moment, and that's kind of what I was talking about this past week too. I was like, like I was telling you about the Instagram.
Right.
It's like I was telling about social media. I was like, you can scroll on Instagram, but some of us scroll a little slower when we see something. Mm-hmm. Some of us scroll right past it. Some of us stay and look at it. Some of us hit those 3 little dots and block that and say, this is not material I want to see. That's where everybody fits in, right?
Right.
Is anybody inherently wrong? Yeah, there's some wrongness in that. But also, are they all not savable? No, everybody could be saved.
For sure.
Everybody, and not one person. I really inherently believe this after walking with so many guys, being in groups and also walking with other guys, is that I've never met a guy that didn't want to be better or didn't want this in their life. They wanted a better relationship with their wife. They wanted better intimacy with their wife. They wanted better sexual intimacy with their wife. Mm-hmm. But it all came at a cost because they were doing something that was kind of eroding at that. And that's where internet pornography comes into place. And then, so therefore, when you start learning, and that's one of the biggest changes that I still apply to this day, is when you learn your triggers. And so we would go over environmental triggers, emotional triggers, physical triggers. And so these little things that would kind of go through life, like things that just hit you. And there was one trigger that really threw me back that really messed with my head because I had a trigger and it was green shag carpet. And I remember talking to Carl, the leader, about that. I was like, man, this is a really weird one. And he's like, well, explain it to me. And I was like, well, when I first started looking at porn, there was green shag carpet on the floor. And that's where I would rub my toes through the carpet. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you, every time I see or feel shag carpet, immediately I think of that. And then I have to kind of deal with the emotion of that because it can throw you in a shame guilt cycle real fast.
Yeah.
And so I have to pray through that. And that sounds really weird for some people. No, it
doesn't sound weird. It's actually having a visceral reaction because there was a physical feeling to those fibers between your toes.
Yeah.
So when you feel that, it's an emotional but also visceral physical trigger.
Yeah.
So it's not weird. I'm sure people listening are actually probably relating to you more than you even realize. When you say that, it probably sounds weird to you because you're one of the only people to vocalize it, which is where your transparency and vulnerability come in, because most people are afraid to even admit that something as simple as shag carpet. Yeah, you may not be seeing green shag carpet anymore, but we actually have rugs and stuff that are still of that texture that you could absolutely come in contact with.
And it's weird because once you, and I spoke about this once with a human trafficking initiative we were a part of for a while, and I made this speech, and we kind of got in a little debate about it, but I made this speech about like, hey, you're forever changed by porn. Mm-hmm. Just like you're forever, just like people I know that, you know, when we're in the prison ministry for a little while, once you've committed a crime, you're forever changed by that crime. You may not be the same person, and you may be living for the Lord, your life may be on the right track, but you still have a part of you that has been very changed and warped that you have to deal with now. And so when pornography, it's one of the things I'm going with my 13-year-old son with, right? It's like the things you are allowing in your life right now will affect you through your whole life.
Right.
They will not stop. Now you can have God and you can accept Jesus and you can do those things, you can have things, but once we allow something in, it is imprinted in our brain and we have to fight through it. And so talking through triggers, it's like, well, the physical, then the emotional triggers of fear, or, you know, and for me, it's when I started thinking of fear of death, fear of others dying around me, fear of people getting sick, fear of my parents getting sick, fear of all these different things. Immediately, I need comfort. I need something to medicate this with so I don't have to think about this. And this is where a lot of men sometimes fit in, is that pornography becomes a distraction from reality.
Yes.
And sometimes video games can't fill that gap. Sports can't fill that gap. I mean, that's why sporting events have so many sexual elements to it now, because it can combine two things to it, right? Mm-hmm. I can draw you in and pull you in on two things.
Yeah.
That's why strip clubs and the adult industry are so tied in with every sporting event across this country, really across the world. You have the Super Bowl, you're going to have human trafficking, you have sex trafficking, you're going to have specials at strip clubs, you're going to have all these things happening because they know I'm going to get a bunch of men who need to escape reality. Mm-hmm. And so it's harder to deal with reality. And so, like, just for me, it's like one of the things I walk through and walk through for a few years is just that acceptance of like, hey, people will get sick and die around me. People will not be my friend. Mm-hmm. Some people will be here for a season. Jobs will come, jobs will go. Like, it's all of these things, dealing with these things. And one of the things I really had to, still to this day, I think about it and I'll journal about it every once in a while. And it's like my expectations. And I know you heard me say this. Like, what are your expectations? Because if your expectations are of someone else and they don't even understand those expectations, you're always going to be let down.
Or they're not even aware that you have those expectations. Yes. You're going to be let down.
Exactly. And that goes back to communication, right?
Yeah.
And even in the workplace, you know, I'm 25 years into the banking industry, and we've been in church circles for a very long time. And one of the hardest uphill battles we've always had is communication, because communication seems to be one of those things kind of deteriorating in our culture right now. And it's like, no, we need to communicate clear understanding of what we're expecting of each other, expecting of, you know, a project, expecting of our day, down to just like like we're talking earlier, like what do we expect our podcast to be? It's just because you want to be on the same page. And then the other side of that is, and that's where you will have to jump in, but walking with, especially when you're married. Now, single guys probably get on that a little bit differently, but when single men are struggling with internet pornography, that is a huge thing. That's a huge question right now. Because what do they do? Because a lot of answers out there right now are like, well, if you're married, you have sex with your wife, right? And it's like, oh, I don't know if that's
that simple.
I don't think that's really what the internet pornography thing's about, is just about sex, because that's not what it's really about.
Right.
It's about escaping. And whenever you realize that internet pornography, like the essence of it, even addictions are kind of an escaping of things, right?
For sure.
I don't want to deal with this, so I'd rather deal with that. If I can stay medicated in some form or fashion, that's why, prescription drugs, different things like that, then I can escape what my reality is.
Right. It's just a temporary release to an ongoing problem that you haven't been addressing effectively is really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So even like, yes, we have a 13-year-old son. No, he's not into that right now, but we already have open and honest, or you do, because that's your place as the father with our son, already have open and honest conversations, because we don't want him to struggle the way that you did or the way that our marriage did. We're already preparing him for a healthy marriage, a healthy single lifestyle, all the things, and that communication now is so important. And we are a very open and honest family that communicates very well and explain things like, this is why you don't want to do this, because we're protecting you from this.
Right.
So we have those open and honest conversations in our family as well.
And we just, when I was a kid, we just didn't have conversations. You had conversations about sex on a very high level, but you didn't get down in the details because, for one, most of us, I'm just going to put a generalization. Most of us grew up in cultures where it was like porn magazines, sexual things, different things like that were all just kind of part of the culture. Mm-hmm. Boys being boys kind of thing.
Yes, and I hate that boys will be boys mentality so much. Oh my gosh.
And I was 12, 13 years old when we got a computer for the first time. The computer was called a gateway computer.
Fitting.
And that shows how old I am. Yes,
but
fitting
also the
too.
name fitting.
But to this day, I can think back of how I hid stuff on that computer because I was kind of setting it up for my parents. I was working on it. I was building folders out, and I'd learned real quick how to hide folders, how to hide browser stuff, how to do all these sorts of things, right?
Right.
Then I had a group of friends. We were all doing that. And then it was this whole culture that we built. So therefore, it was just a group of us all participating in this very big corruption, and then we're trying to figure out why our lives are so confusing and why we're feeling all this anxiety or fear or anger, and then we're drinking and doing drugs. And it was kind of just like that's why I say with the drugs, alcohol, everything like that, it's like, well, the last thing to really deal with was internet pornography, because after internet pornography, then I'm dealing with, and most people with internet pornography issues, they've got to be full-fledged faced with their emotions they're dealing with. Mm-hmm. What is because then you're dealing with a thing with God, with your relationship with God. Faith. For me, it was a big faith issue. And so some of my darkest moments with internet pornography would be after I had a really big religious event or some church event, right? Because then afterwards, late at night by myself, I would just feel this crushing pain of like, ooh, yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm not this. So then instead of trying to make something better and you don't have anybody to really connect to, you just pour into this because you're like, oh, I need to medicate from this feeling because I can't handle this, right? I don't have a person to call. Who am I going to call to say, hey guy, I'm struggling with this. I want to look at porn, but I don't know what to do right now.
Right.
There's so many men out there that don't have anybody. And this is true with anything people struggle with, right? You have to have someone who's you can count on, who's a little bit further down the road than you. That's why you used the word facilitator earlier with marriages, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we're not leading, we're facilitating, we're helping. So we might be 2 miles up the road we're trying to get you up to the road with us so we can walk together.
Right.
And now we can encourage each other. And then we're just sending those lifelines back and forth with people. So on the other side, though, I think talking from your standpoint with how pornography, kind of those early days, especially whenever I was telling you things in the groups and trying to explain those things, because I know I had a hard time explaining in the groups, because you would ask me sometimes and I would try to explain, I would bump around, and you would kind of like, what are y'all talking about, kind of thing. So
yeah. So back then I was just genuinely trying to understand, because I mean, I knew you participated in pornography and looked at it, didn't really know that it was becoming like a dependency for you, or that it was a problem, or that you felt convicted about it until you just told me one day that you had started these groups. So I was like, okay, what does this accountability look like? And you would tell me that y'all would share stories, kind of like AA, type accountability. And I had just started being like, okay, let me do a little bit of research on this, because I want to know how to support you, right? But also take care of myself at the same time, because now that you've been open, that it's more, that you're looking at it more than I thought you were and stuff, that's when women can go down a road of feeling like not worthy, right? Not good enough. My body doesn't look good enough, right? So in the research, what I found is basically it's like your battle began before me, and it wasn't about my worth. It's not my fault. It's not because I wasn't enough. This started long before I ever even came into the picture. And most pornography addictions typically start like in adolescence or sometimes even childhood. So, and there's different reasons for it starting. Exposure because they saw a magazine in their father's bathroom, or unfortunately more traumatic events, can happen. And then it becomes a way to cope with pain or boredom or insecurity, shame, or loneliness, right? And it's not because of my shortcomings. It had really nothing to do with me. So that's something I had to learn. And that's something I tell women all the time, because I get asked, how did you stay? How did you deal with that? Well, once I learned that it had absolutely nothing to do with me, it wasn't because of me, then I was able to actually more see it as a place of, just like I would if someone was an alcoholic or drugs, we automatically know that's not starting because of your spouse. That's a personal problem. So is pornography. Now, the difference between this personal problem, just like, actually, it's really not a difference. With drugs or alcohol, it's the same. Yes, it's a personal problem. However, it's a problem that affects your marriage and your relationships. So that's where, like, I do have to step in, right, in this moment. So now, wives are not supposed to be men's accountability partners. We are not supposed to be in the details, because if we are, we're going to ruminate on those details, because that's who we are as women, right? We're going to start focusing like, okay, what type is he looking at? What's the physical triggers? Because then that's not safe to do, because that's when your mind will get into a space of like, I don't look like that. I don't do that. Ooh, I'm not willing to do that. I am not good enough. And then that is really what you'll just start to feel. So if you think about it, pornography lies, right? It first lies to the man by saying like, this will satisfy you. This is harmless. You need this. Then it also lies to the woman, the spouse. It says, if you're more beautiful, more adventurous, if you were more enough for him, he wouldn't need this. Those are two complete lies. Porn isn't a response to a lack in you. it's the result of a lack in wholeness in him. There's brokenness there, right? So there's therapy and accountability and things that need to happen. So me as the wife, he did confide in me triggers. So that is a space that I felt I could handle, knowing what your triggers are, so that way if I can see an emotional trigger, an environmental trigger, physical, whatever, that I can recognize that, like in you, right? And I can come to you in a loving way instead of being like, "Ah, did you look at porn today?" in a judgy way.
Mm-hmm.
I could say, hey, I see you're struggling. How can I pray for you?
Yeah. I think, well, in the trigger department, in the early days, we had to stop a lot of media. I remember us stopping a lot of media. We went a couple years without a lot of movies and entertainment in our lives.
Right.
And because I told you, one of the triggers was that in those moments, like if you're feeling a certain way, say you're angry about your day or you're sad about your day or you're fearful about the day, and then you watch a movie or something that kind of perpetuates that in your life, right? And then it's tied in with something sexual. So therefore we took a long break with that. I remember us having a long conversation just about movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a conversation just about times, like, hey, being alone. Or I remember when I would come home from work and I would call you like, hey, I'm at home from work. I'm actually at home for lunch today, just to let you know, because I was at home by myself, right? And it wasn't, and sometimes this is where people get tied up on like feeling like it's a babysitter or a mom-dad relationship. And it's really not. It's honoring your wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where you just pointed it out. But it's not the woman's fault, but it is the man's responsibility to help the woman feel safe
1,000%.
and secure, right?
Yes.
That's what I had to learn too, was that while my triggers aren't really yours, you were helping me, but also helping me also grow into that role I need to really strengthen in making you feel safe and secure.
Right.
Something I still, like every man needs to work on it every day.
1,000%. Yes.
And it changes throughout your life. And then we had the triggers of like, hey, I got to go out of town for this work conference or this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in those early days, I would go and say, because I got the idea from a guy in the group would say, hey, can you have my TV removed before I get there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's changed a little bit because now you can take computers and laptops, stuff like that with you. But the message is still there. You take radical steps if you want to make radical change.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of men, I remember visiting with one person once when I was mentoring people. And I realized he was just making a lot of excuses. And I remember asking him, do you really want to be free from porn? Is this something you really want to work on? And do you want your marriage to survive?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him saying, well, this is what my wife wants to do. And then it instantly brought me back to our group. And it was like, Carl would say this. And again, Carl was a New Jersey guy, straight to the point.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing this for someone else, just leave the group.
Yeah.
You'll never do it.
Yeah.
And I remember him telling the same thing.
Because you should want to do it for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to do it for yourself and your marriage.
Right.
Like your wife should not be shouldering there's times in life where we're going to shoulder things for each other.
For sure.
But that should not be the norm.
No, we shouldn't have to shoulder it, but we do have to come alongside each other.
Yes.
Because we are in a marriage. So like, no, I didn't cause it. I also can't control it. And I also can't be the one that cures it, right?
Right.
So what a wife can do, though, is love deeply, pray faithfully, and support wisely. But you can't fix an addiction that you didn't cause. That's still his responsibility and still a part of his healing journey with God. So what our role is to do is to guard our heart from false blame. And the false blame can come from your husband. That has happened. Mm-hmm. It did not come from mine, thankfully. But it is something that happens often. Like a husband, like, if you did this, I wouldn't go to this. That's false. That's not even true. That's a lie. Don't believe it. It's also our job to set healthy boundaries. Like, this is what I'm okay with, this is what I'm not okay with. This is where that healthy communication comes into play. And then also, it's okay for you to heal personally while he's working on his recovery. Mm-hmm. It's okay for two people to be healing at the same time while also supporting one another. Both things can be done. So that's what I had to do. I started working on myself and my own personal thoughts about myself and my body since it was changing. Once I truly realized like it didn't have anything to do with me and that it was a separate issue, I actually found so much peace in that. And that's how I was able to come alongside you and view it as like, he doesn't want to be like this. He doesn't want to cause me this harm. He doesn't want to cause himself this harm. So we need to look at this as an addiction or a dependency and come alongside together for good, to work for the good of our marriage. So that is how I was able to overcome and not take it so personally.
Mm-hmm. What would you say like is one of the biggest hurdles, I think, whenever we were in the mix of it? So say because this is a conversation I have with guys, and then they will have this kind of middle point in their conversation where they don't know what to say to the wife, mm-hmm. but they're trying to say to me or someone else about this pornography. And one of the first steps is like at some point you have to tell your wife something. Mm-hmm. And how do you like bridge that gap? Because a lot of men also have fear of like, if I tell her, she's going to divorce me or she's going to leave me.
Well, and that fear is pretty valid.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of women that think that way. Since I've walked with a lot of spouses, I mean, that's literally their first response. They're actually loathing that they're meeting with us, mm-hmm. right? They're angry. I had a friend once tell me that she was like, I'm so angry at him. I have visions of chopping him up and feeding him to sharks. And I was like,
I can't wait till she hears it.
I can't wait till she hears it. We're still very good friends today. So I know
and she has a beautiful marriage now.
Oh, a beautiful marriage now. Love her. So proud of her. And anyways, she's going to laugh so hard when she hears that. But I just looked at her and I said, hey, that's valid. And she looked at me shocked. She was like, really? I'm like, yeah, mm-hmm. They're your feelings. Those are natural thoughts. I'm glad you spoke that out loud. And she was like, what? And then it's like, that's when we knew we were going to be like really good friends and be on the same page. Because I didn't judge her and be like, oh my gosh, you dream of chopping him up and feeding him to sharks? How dare you? I was like, no, that's like totally valid.
Yeah.
Because it was.
Yeah.
Because she felt betrayed and that was her feeling. So any feelings that a wife is feeling is valid. It's also valid for a man to feel scared to tell his wife these things. But at the same time, that's where forgiveness comes in. And I want women to hear this, like, forgiveness is not excusing. It's releasing. It does not mean you're pretending it didn't happen, and it doesn't mean like the pain disappears overnight, and it doesn't mean that trust is instantly restored. Like this is gonna take work. But it does mean that you're choosing to release the offense into God's hands instead of carrying the weight of it on your own. So I want y'all to really hear that. It's releasing the offense into God's hand instead of carrying the weight on your own. You don't need to carry the weight of his sin on that. You can allow God to be the judge and the righteous healer of your husband. And I think you need to have trust in God that he will do that, especially if your husband is being open and honest with you and confessing his sins and taking active steps to work in accountability and do the work. You need to honor that work that he's doing. Again, it doesn't make it right, doesn't take it away. This does not happen overnight. But if you're willing to work it out, and I hope you are, you have to also do the work as far as being a safe space for your husband to tell you, hey, I'm triggered today. I'm going to go into an accountability group. Will you pray for me? And you can pray for him like without knowing the details. And I think letting go of bitterness and resentment and shame and just seeing your husband the way God does, as human, as broken, as someone who's already dealing with guilt and shame, is really what helps the healing process, because there is so much hope in it and there's so much beauty after this pain.
Right. And there's a lot of, and from a guy's perspective, this is kind of what I've told men in the past. When you're in the process, when you have violated your wife, your girlfriend, your whatever, your fiance's trust, you have to go through a process of rebuilding it. Mm-hmm. You can still trust each other to do the right thing inherently, but there is a trust there that, like, I need to trust you when you're in the bedroom with me. I need to trust you when we're walking with each other. I need to trust you whenever, you're alone doing something, that you always have the family's best interests in play, not
For
your
sure.
selfish
Right.
ambitions or your selfish passions, right? And when you're rebuilding that trust, when you talk about why do people get divorced with this, the biggest thing that I will say, and I remember us talking to women, if your husband is just not wanting to put the work in at all, that's a person who doesn't value the marriage.
Or you as a wife.
Or you as a person or a wife doesn't value, so there has to be something there. And sometimes it takes a little bit more help.
Right. So to move forward as a couple, he must actively walk in repentance, honesty, accountability, therapy, recovery work, spiritual growth. Like that's on him. Our part as the women is we have to be empowered to heal. We have to set boundaries. We also need to find support, and we need to express our needs and feelings without the guilt that it will trigger him. Like, it's okay for you to be honest. And finding support, because there's several support groups out there. In fact, I actually brought the women's support groups to XXX Church at the time, because I was like, hey, thank you that there's accountability for the men, but we need groups for the women. And I was a part of the very first women's support group for XXX Church, and I helped lead those groups, and I think they're still going today.
Yeah. It's under a different name. It's Live Free now.
Yes, under Live
app.
Free. So, and then so yeah, you need to be empowered to heal and set those boundaries and find support. And again, don't feel guilt for expressing your needs and how you feel. And then together, we have to build something new. We can't just patch up the old work. Like, we have to build something new together. Is it livefreecommunity.org?
Yes.
Yes. I highly recommend that for men's accountability and also women's support group. I think they may even have support groups for women who also struggle with pornography, because it's not just a male issue.
Pastors, women, teens now. So
yeah, this is not just a male issue.
I actually have an email out there to maybe start my own group under their, but that's a whole thing that we'll release later maybe.
So I want to say something real quick, because I'm sure we're probably running out of time. I'm not quite sure. We're good? Okay. Accountability is protection. It's not punishment. Sometimes I think men seem to think that it's a punishment, like, oh, this is what I have to do because I hurt my wife. But it's actually about building safety and restoring trust. It says I want to fight for us, but we both have to show up. So accountability looks like the accountability groups, but it also looks like transparency with phones and devices and habits. It looks like regular check-ins between each other. And one of the most important aspects of it is this shared prayer life, spiritual foundation of it, like praying together. So
just like we did before this podcast, we were feeling a little rough. We stopped and we prayed, right?
Right.
It's the same thing whenever you're in the middle of kind of these things of building trust. It's like, hey, wife, I got a really tough thing going on at work today. These are things you learn in accountability group. Mm-hmm. I got these situations because we were talking about situational awareness.
Yeah.
Hey, I got this really tough situation, this tough relationship at work, or this difficult person, or whatever. And so what you would do is you stop and you say, okay, let me pray over these situations. You've let me be aware of it. That is your wife, the wife, to say, okay, I'm aware of these situations. I'm going to follow back up on these later tonight. Hey, how did this particular situation go today?
Right.
Because it gives the husband an opportunity to voice that and to explain that, but also kind of preemptively strikes the inability to say, okay, I'm going to probably just look at porn tonight because that's how I'm going to deal with this issue. No, I'm going to deal with this issue by pouring into my relationship with my wife, which in turn is going to help me build my relationship with my family. And therefore, I'm doing what God's calling me to do now. I'm leading out my family.
Right. And healing really requires the two hearts, my heart, your heart, willing to do the work. You cannot wish something or pray something away. And I want to make that very clear because I do know some churches just make it sound like you don't have a good enough relationship with God. That's why you struggle with it. Now, yes, that can be true. But there is still so much work that has to be done. He has to own the hurt that he's caused. He has to be the one to get into accountability and do the work. You have to tend to your wounds instead of burying them and being honest. And then we both have to invite Jesus into this messy middle that we have. And it's going to be messy. Like we said, it does not happen overnight. It's okay. There's going to be up and down. There's going to be ups and downs, setbacks, tears, but there's also going to be grace and growth.
I was going to say, how many people do we know that have, like us, that have walked through this and it's been a blessing?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what's weird to say.
It actually draws you closer.
Yes.
Because you're actually talking about the taboo things that nobody talks about.
So
it can only draw you near to each other and to God if you do it right. And
again, we're not for divorce, obviously, because that's what our podcast I still do. But,
Right.
or like the friend we're talking about,
Yeah.
she found out really quick the husband she was with was not on board
with
being a husband. So now she has
he wasn't
beautiful
willing
family.
to do the work at all.
And if this doesn't all come out, she could still be dealing with all of that.
Yeah, she would still be walking in a messy, lonely
And now she's
place.
in a man leading her.
Now she fought with all her might
Yeah.
to save that marriage.
Exactly.
He did not.
That's right.
And that's when it's like, you know what? Yeah, you don't have to live in that because he's not honoring the vows that he made to you. You did, and you did it well.
Yep.
And God honored that with her. God honored her with the most incredible husband. And they are thriving with 2 children and just living their... it kind of gets me emotional because...
I know you start thinking about it.
Yeah, because she tried
We
hard.
We remember them sitting at our table.
Yeah.
In that disastrous situation, and now to see it now.
Yeah.
And to see what road he chose.
And he lives a miserable life.
He lives
It's miserable. Like, he really is miserable. And hers is so beautiful. And God placed this incredible man in her life that loves her well, supports her, treats her well. And she's a mother now with 2 beautiful children and a thriving business. Like, it's beautiful to see how God still redeemed and restored her, even though... Because she struggled so much walking away from the marriage because she's like, God doesn't want this. But we walked with her through it being like, actually, God doesn't want you to stay in a place where he's not willing to do the work. You honored your vows. He didn't, and it's okay to let go. Yeah,
that's where it gets tough and sticky and very... But I hope that everyone's hearing the 2 drastic things. And also, I look at the analytics of the podcast and I noticed that it's like 70% of women are listening to our podcast, right? But I hope the men who are listening can understand that, hey, it is on us to step up and be, if men would just step up and be transparent with where they're struggling with their wives, yes, it will be tough and it will be embarrassing and it will be revealing. It will feel like you're standing naked in front of a room. Right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it has to be done, because what's happening, not only is your marriage suffering, your relationship with God is suffering. You are probably in some sort of faith crisis right now. There's something going on. And if you have kids that are older, just like I was talking to a dad just about a teenager, and I'm like, if you're dealing with this, you're going to help your teenager too, because you're going to know what you're doing. Right now, it's kind of like I'm smoking cigarettes and I'm telling my child not to smoke cigarettes, right? And you can't have that kind of mannerism especially when you're raising kids.
No, you have to lead by example.
You have to.
You can't just talk about it.
Even if it's messy example. Even if it's a messy example, and God knows our kids know it's a messy example. But
exactly.
It's got to be an example of like we are always trying. And that's one of the things in the accountability group. I remember early on we learned it was not. I'm going to try to get this right. It wasn't about failing. And I remember we were talking about not failing. It's about failing forward. Like I'm failing, but I'm keep forwarding.
Yeah,
I'm falling forward. I'm not falling backwards and just being laying on my back and like, okay, all hope is lost. No.
Yeah, no.
You fail, you move on,
yeah,
you go to the next day.
You try again.
And this is a critical part too, is that when life changes. So there was a guy and his wife or his dad or something, someone in their family had gotten sick. And he had fallen all back into pornography. And I remember Carl just giving him like so much grace, like, look, this is a new thing.
Yep,
this is a whole new thing that you just got attacked with. We did not build a battle plan for this. So we're going to build one now.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things when I talk with guys, I'm like, what are we battling with and what do we need to build battle plans around? Because the battle does change.
Yes.
Soon
and
as
this
you
is why
conquer
accountability is so important, because you need somebody. Because when you're in the midst of things going on like that and you can't see clearly, you need somebody who can.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to end on some like really 3 important points. And the first one is forgiveness is her choice. It's not an obligation that's forced by guilt. So when you choose to forgive, wives, forgive your husband, please know, do not feel an obligation to do so. That is something that you need to want to do and pray about, and I hope that you will. Accountability is his responsibility, not a burden for you to carry. And then healing is a shared journey. It is not a solo project. So.
It's just like we said in church, right? Being alone is horrible. We can't do much alone.
No, God didn't design us to be alone. He designed community. Accountability groups are just another form of community for when you're needing healing in a place of hurt. So I pray that this podcast, like today, spoke to whoever needed to hear it today, because this is a serious issue that is, like I said, plaguing the majority of Christian marriages, not just marriages in general, but Christian marriages. And so I pray that this encourages you to start open communication, or if you've already got the open communication going and you're struggling to forgive, I pray that you start asking God to help you to do so, because it is your choice. It does not need to be done in guilt, but it does need to be done at some point, because it is also for you. You need that. So I guess we could just pray it out.
Let's pray it out.
Yeah. How about
we'll
you?
do that,
How about you lead?
This is a tough one.
It's a heavy topic, and
yeah,
we're not unaware of that.
So God, we are so thankful for you giving us this platform, but we are more praying for the people listening that need to hear this, but also for the people that this hits home right now, that there's a lot of pain associated with this, a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration. And I just pray for those people, Lord, that feel lost with this, especially with the subject of internet pornography or sexual intimacy, these areas that are very close to our heart, Lord, and some of the most things that we keep the most secret and we don't talk about. I pray that we find transparency, and I pray, Lord, for anyone listening, Lord, that they would just come upon groups or people that would just be trusted people in their circle, Lord. They could help them through this.
Yes. Lord, we just come to you as the God who sees the hidden pain, the silent tears, and the aching hearts of couples walking through this storm. You are the healer of what seems beyond repair, the restorer of broken trust, and the one who makes beauty from ashes. And Lord, I lift up the husband and wife who are standing in the tension of the deep hurt and the fragile hope. You know their story, you know every wound, every battle, and every tear. And I ask that you surround them with your presence that brings light into the darkness and truth into the lies. For the wife, I ask that you guard her heart from shame, comparison, and self-blame. I ask that you remind her that she's enough and that this battle began before her and that her worth was sealed in you long before she was ever a wife. Heal the cracks where betrayal tried to whisper lies about her identity. And for the husband, I ask for holy conviction, not condemnation. Break the chains of lust and addiction at their root. Give him courage to walk in honesty, humility, and accountability. Replace secrecy with transparency, pride and repentance, and shame with your grace that transform. And for the marriage, Father, I ask that you breathe life where there's been decay. Let forgiveness flow gently but powerfully, and not erasing the past, but inviting your redemption into it. Please build a new foundation on truth, grace, and mutual trust, and teach them to fight together for each other, not against each other. And I ask, Lord, that you place them in a community that supports their healing, safe people with wise counsel and godly voices. And I just ask that you strengthen both of them with their hearts surrendered to you. I thank you, God, for what you're doing in them and through them and for them. And I thank you that no wound is too deep for your grace. No marriage is too broken for your hand to restore. And it's in your mighty name that we declare hope, healing, and holy restoration. Amen.
Amen. Okay, till next time.
Yeah. See you next time. Thanks so much for listening to I Still Do. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. We'd also love to hear from you, so if you have any questions or even a story you'd like to share with us to get our advice on, please feel free to send us an email at geraldandtabby@istilldopodcast.com. Until next time, keep choosing love and each other, because we still do.